Hey guys, it's Brian here. Well, due to some befuddling and, totally unexpected reasons that I won't bore you with, the only place to find me and the show on Facebook is in our brand new Grand Canyon Hiker Dude Show private group, and you are all invited. We'll now aim to be the home of Grand Canyon hiking inspiration and information, and will always exist only to serve you, the Grand Canyon hiking community. That's always been the focus, and it always will be. We hope you'll join the conversation. That's the Grand Canyon Hiker Dude Show Facebook group. We'll see you there. Now, on to the show.
This was really the closest I've been to dying. It was a really bad situation.
They thought they were going to die. Welcome to Grand Canyon Hiking in the heat of summer. My name is Brian Special, and this is the Grand Canyon Hiker Dude Show presented by Bright Angel Outfitters. Real quick, folks, would you mind leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening? It really helps us get the show in front of the people who need it. We would be so grateful. Also, please check out all of our free resources like the Grand Canyon Shade Tracker and our ebook, A Beginner's Guide to Rim2Rim. Both are totally free at brightangeloutfitters.com. And while you're there, have a look at our 22-liter Rim2Rim day pack with the front shoulder pockets and insulated pocket to keep everything cold. The Rim2Rim pack is designed for you to hike your best hike. There are also canyon-themed tees and hoodies like our Rim2Rim collection. Sales directly support this show. We would be so appreciative if you would consider stopping by. That's at brightangeloutfitters.com. All right, this time a tale of a bucket list hike where to them, kicking the bucket seemed more likely for a time than having any fond memories to look back on. It's the story of a trio from the heartland and the mistakes that were made on a Rim2Rim they weren't sure they were going to survive. This is the Grand Canyon Hiker Dude Show presented by Bright Angel Outfitters. Al Pickering is 52, a police officer, with a wife, Stacy, and a 22-year-old son. They live in Nebraska, and it wasn't too long ago that Al and Stacy found a love for hiking.
I don't know, people call us flatlanders in Nebraska or whatever, and getting out to the mountain. We love the mountains and love Utah and Arizona. We love getting out there, and that's just kind of our thing. You get away and you clear your mind. You see how small you are compared to the world when you're out there. I like the challenge because in my mind, the beauty of the hike or whatever keeps me going, even if I'm tired. What's around the next corner? What's the waterfall going to look like, or what wildlife we might see? That keeps me going.
Al and Stacy's hiking adventures have taken them to Angel's Landing, Bryce Canyon, Colorado, and even overseas to places like Jordan. Then one day, while scrolling the internet, another iconic hike caught Al's attention.
As I just started watching YouTube videos, I think I just caught somewhere along the line a video of someone doing the Rim2Rim. And we had been to the Grand Canyon one time before, just the South Rim, and I think maybe we went down to the 3-mile rest house and back up. And I just watched a video. I told my wife, I said, boy, I'd like to do that. And now I was 49 at the time. I'm 52 now. And so that was kind of my goal. I thought, I'd like to stay at the Phantom Ranch and do this when I'm 50, just to show that you can do it at 50 years old. And so that was kind of my goal.
If you've ever considered taking on such an itinerary, you know the logistics of Rim2Rim can seem just as challenging as the hike itself. And Al quickly found that out. That first year, he tried the lottery for a stay at Phantom and didn't get in. But he kept checking the website for cancellations, hoping for a north to south Rim2Rim with 2 nights at Phantom. And in March of 2023, he finally had a breakthrough.
I found 2 dates in June of 2023. So the problem with that is my wife doesn't get the time off, as much time off as I do. So 2 days during the week where we couldn't work it into a weekend, I think it might have been a Tuesday and a Wednesday, wouldn't allow her to go just due to the amount of time she gets off from work. So I asked my brother if he wanted to go. He had hiked in Washington State one time with a friend, a small hike, but I thought, maybe that has interested him in wanting to do something further. So I asked him if he wanted to go. He asked what was needed, what kind of gear, and I said this and this and this kind of training.
Al's brother, David, a diabetic and 39 at the time, said he was in. But this is 2023, a year of record snowfall on the North Rim, and with it, significant damage to the North Kaibab Trail that would keep it closed until July.
So I was like, well, that kind of bummed me out, because that was the goal, was the north, to do rim to rim, north to south. So then I started watching again on the Phantom Ranch, the website there to stay, and some dates came open in July. Well, I know from watching all the videos, July is the worst time to be hiking in the bottom of the Grand Canyon. However, these dates incorporated part of the weekend, which then would allow my wife to go. So I dropped the June dates and I picked up the July dates. And part of that reason as well is the older you get, the more likely you are to do something. And so I thought, I'm going with it. I'm going with the 2 July dates, and we're just going to make it work, and we're going to prepare, and we're going to get up early and hike, not hike in the sun, not be in the box when you shouldn't be.
When those July dates came open and you realized that your wife was going to be able to go after all, and I only ask you this respectfully because it's a big part of the story to come, but did you consider uninviting your brother at that point?
Yes, I did think about uninviting my brother. And that's the big part of the story would be if you got somebody you don't think can make it, you need to have a real heart to heart before you go down. So I did think about it, and he had the opportunity. There was plenty of time to say he didn't want to go now that my wife was able to go, but he chose to go with. But yes, I did think about it.
What was it about him that worried you?
Oh, lack of preparation. Because I would send him all the YouTube videos. Watch this video. Watch this video. Watch this video. Now, I could rely on our past hiking and our past, like I said, every time we hike, we build upon it with our gear, our preparation, what we need to do. And obviously Nebraska is flat, but we have places that we would go hike or even just walk on a track. And I even said that to him. I said, hey, have you ever walked 14 miles in a day before? And if not, just go walk on a track, put your backpack on and walk 14 miles and tell me how you feel the next day. He never did that. He works from home and he used a walking treadmill at your desk. And that's just not enough to do to hike in the Grand Canyon. I think sometimes people watch the videos of people that can do the hike in one day, like yourself, which to me, that's crazy. I would never attempt that because I know it would be extremely tough. I think he saw that and maybe said, well, that person can do it in a day. We're doing it in 3. I don't know exactly if that was the logic, but, yeah, he did nothing to prepare to go down into the Grand Canyon other than buy the things I told him. And I tried to lead him along to say, hey, you need to do these things because this is not going to be easy.
Eventually, the big day arrived. After flying into Phoenix and leaving their car at the South Rim, the trio shuttled to the North Rim, where they stayed the night at Kaibab Lodge, which is just outside the park. At 4 the next morning, they finally found themselves at the North Kaibab trailhead. What were you guys feeling? You've planned this trip. It's a bucket list hike. When you're taking the shuttle to the trailhead, it's 4:00 in the morning. I mean, how pumped is everyone, including David at this point?
We're the picture we take at the beginning. We all got smiles on our face. We're ready to go. We got all our gear, and it's dark. We all got our headlamps on. Very excited to get going, and more because me and my wife know the types of things that if you just go that little extra distance that you're going to see that no one else will see, and some people will never have the ability to go see. And so that's where it is with me, that I knew we were going to go over. I think there's 6 or 7 bridges that you cross over on the way down, or I don't remember the exact number. The waterfall, we wanted to try to get to Ribbon Falls, and that was just the excitement. I wanted to get to Phantom Ranch. I know that, whatever they say, less than 1% of the people that visit the Grand Canyon do this hike or even get to the Phantom Ranch. And that's my excitement. And I think my brother's excitement was just doing something that was kind of out of the box for him, something he's never really done before. And he's only heard us talk about it.
How worried were you about the heat? Because you had to look at the forecast. You knew it was July. You knew it was Arizona. You had to know that it was going to be hot, but were you prepared for how hot it was, and how hot was it at the start?
Well, I don't remember exactly what the temp was when we woke up, but it was toasty. I think it was probably a good 80 degrees, probably right when we started. So when me and my wife hike on all trails, it'll give you an estimate, or anything on the internet will give you an estimate. Normally it takes you, like the north side, it says normally it takes somebody 4 to 6 hours to get down. We usually hit the middle part because we're not running it. We enjoy the view. We're taking our pictures. So we hit right about the middle mark, about 5 hours. So that was kind of my estimate in my mind. And from watching all the videos about not being in the box between 10 and 2 or 11 and 2. So that was my thought. Well, we're at 4. We start at 4:30. Let's say the longest it takes us with my brother, let's say 6 hours, or let's say 8 hours. We're there at 12 or 12:30. We're at the Phantom Ranch.
Hey, let me just interject here. It needs to be said that those time estimates Al had, 4 to 6 hours hiking from the trailhead to Phantom Ranch, were wildly ambitious and ultimately dangerous. The actual median for hikers is probably somewhere around 7 hours. So it's vitally important to consider the source of the information you're getting and at least cross-check it against multiple sources. Unrealistic time goals like Al had because of the information he was given will absolutely contribute to the struggles and suffering you're about to hear about. If he'd had better information, maybe his group would have at least picked a different starting time on a day when the official high temperature at Phantom Ranch would hit 116. And sure enough, after 5.5 miles, Al and his wife and his brother found themselves at the Manzanita rest area at what's essentially the base of the North Rim.
Once we get to about Manzanita, my brother essentially just says, I can't go on.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So my thought in my mind was, well, how can't you walk downhill? That was kind of my thought in my mind is we're going downhill. I mean, even though some of it you kind of come up and go back down.
Do you think it was the heat that was getting him, or do you think it was just a combination of the exertion and the heat? What do you think it was? And just not being prepared?
I think all of it. You got to test your gear. You've got to use, I know you're a big fan of hiking poles. I am as well. I think I don't have knee issues. I know a lot of people have bad knees. I use them on the way down. I use them on the way up, and I've got the cheap ones. I think I order them off Amazon. He wasn't using his poles on the way down like you should, because you've got those big steps there. It's not all even hiking.
How was his mood on the way down? Was it okay, or could you tell that he was getting progressively tired?
Yeah, he was getting progressively tired and hot. And so we got to that point, Manzanita, where the water is and the bathrooms. And that was kind of my thought, too, is if we can just keep moving, get our water into our system. We got to Manzanita, and yeah, his face was red, and it was getting really hot. I suppose it was 90-some degrees then because we had been hiking for a few hours. Got water on him. We're wetting our face masks or towels that you wear around your neck. Keeping those wet, keeping plenty of water because all the water was running at that point to those stations. And I suppose in retrospect, I probably should have sent him back up, but we hadn't planned that. We had not planned a stay for him. There was no shuttle to take him back. There was no cell service to do such a thing, because that cell service there is real spotty. So I thought, well, I just hope let's get going. Let's get to Phantom Ranch. We have 2 nights there to rest and recoup. And then, it's straight up when you leave out of there, but it's not as far, and you have more rest stops, more bathroom breaks, more water, and you'll see more people. So at Manzanita, yeah, that's when I think it's right about there when we're like, oh no, now we've got to do some things to keep moving.
I mean, you're only 5.5 miles into this hike. You've descended 3,600 feet from the rim, and now you've got the longest, hottest stretch of the entire hike, and you're going to do that right in the middle of the day, because that is, I mean, everyone talks about the box, but going from Manzanita to the box, You're facing direct sun exposure and intense heat that entire way, and then you get into the box, and it can be even worse. So you still had so far to go. Was Ribbon Falls still in the cards, or did you guys scrap that idea immediately and be like, we just got to survive now? What were you guys thinking?
Right. So I'll add this to it too, because I just think it gives a little more, paints a better picture. I'm a pretty big guy to begin with. So I'm 6'4", 265 on a good day. So I'm carrying my pack with probably 22-ish pounds of gear. But at this point, I then take my brother's backpack and carry it. So now I'm carrying his gear, which probably puts me total weight of probably around 300 pounds probably. So I'm carrying his gear at that point in an attempt to keep us moving, because in my mind the whole time I'm like, we cannot be in the box between these times. We can't be. It's just not, it's not good. We can't be there. All the videos I've watched, all the reading I've done. So my hope was then is all he would have to do is walk. He doesn't have to carry anything. He just needs to walk. So we got to Cottonwood, and that's where we filled up our waters, and we took a break there. And yeah, I could just tell that he was somewhere else, thinking, "Oh, I've made a mistake. Maybe, what should I do?" And my hope was just to because we were going downhill, that I thought, well, downhill is the easiest part of this. Let's get to the ranch where people are. We went to Ribbon Falls.
You did still go to Ribbon Falls.
So we go to Ribbon Falls and we stop because I really wanted to see it. Everybody talks about it. So my brother said he's going to sit there and rest. I said, great. And I think he got some cell service at that point where, every so often you just get a bunch of texts or something. So then me and my wife were going to try to go to the Ribbon Falls, and we thought, well, we'll let him rest while we do that. I attempted to cross that. There's no way to get across it unless you cross the water, Bright Angel there. And it was just running too fast and the weeds were too thick. So I abandoned that idea. It was really too hard to do. I wanted to do it, but we couldn't. So then we came back and we kind of regrouped, and we had a little bit of shade there. Kind of maybe have a little pump me up speech and okay, we need to get going. We're to this point, we cannot be in the box at the house part of the day. And I'm thinking we were at Ribbon Falls maybe around 9-ish, maybe 9 or 10, maybe. So here we are, just shy of the box at the time you shouldn't be there.
So now you guys have made it past Cottonwood. You're at the Ribbon Falls turnoff. You decide not to go to Ribbon Falls. What is what's your brother feeling, saying? What are his symptoms? What's happening at this point? And how's your wife handling all this?
Well, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I've got to keep us all going here and kind of still be a good guy about this. But at one point he told us to leave him there. And I said, well, that's not an option. I can't leave you here by yourself. We can't do that. There's no one to come get you. And we only had one water filtration, and I had it. And I'm glad that's another part. I almost didn't bring it because I knew we had water, and the water was on all the way, but I brought it. So he told us to leave him and that he, I guess, would get down on his own. I think at that point he was texting his significant other, because you would get service. Like I said, it was real intermittent. So we made a decision. I kept carrying his bag, so he didn't have to carry that. My wife would carry his fanny pack, which had batteries for his phone, because that connected for his pumps on his diabetes things to control it. And so, when you're accounting for every ounce when you're in a hike like that, all that extra weight you weren't planning on adds up. So we got going. I said, we just got to go. We can't, that was in my mind is we can't be in this heat. It's way too hot. And now it's probably 110, probably. It's up there in heat. That heat rose real quick.
Is your brother presenting any symptoms at this point? Does it look like, heat exhaustion, heat stroke, borderline, anything like that? I mean, you said he was red, but what's he saying about how he's feeling?
He said his legs felt like jello. He couldn't walk. So we kept him drinking. water, and we had salt tabs or electrolyte tabs. They were like little dissolvables you can put in your mouth. Not the Nuns, it was something else. But and I almost didn't bring a whole bag of those. I told my wife, "Oh, that's we got plenty." I'm glad she brought the whole bag because they'd come into play and we'd use them all. Yeah, he had checked out. He had checked out, and I feel this is my own personal point of view that 51% of this is if you drop below that and you check out, you're not going to make it.
You're saying 51% is mental?
Yeah, yeah, oh, for sure. To me, for me, because again, I'm not the best in shape person in the world, but I know that if you quit, you won't make it. If you say I give up, and that's just no give up. When
And you
I'm
think
doing that kind of
you think he was past that threshold?
Yep, yep. And I said we can't do that, and so we have to keep going. He was walking extremely slow. I mean, when I show people, I mean, it was literally inches at a time he would walk. And so I just kept saying, we've got to get through. We cannot be in this area. We cannot be there because there's no shade. There's no nothing. We've got to go.
How's your wife at this point, Al? Because we know how families can be. You know how it can be with in-laws and siblings. And how's just everybody's mood, and how are you guys handling this? Because I mean, I've got a brother. I know that things can get a little tense if you let it, and you might speak a little harsher to them than you would someone else. So how were you guys all doing, and how in the world was Stacy handling all this?
Well, she works out a lot. Now she's shorter. She's 5'2". So when you're walking up those big steps that are or walking down the steps and then up, that's a challenge for a shorter person. I'm taller, so it's not quite so bad. She works out quite a bit, and she's done all these hikes with me. And every time we do one, she's glad she did it. You know, when you're husband and wife and you can look at each other's faces and kind of know what the other person's thinking a little bit. I think she was letting me do that thinking, trying to formulate a plan to keep moving forward because we couldn't leave him. That wasn't an option. We were too far down, and you could see that he'd kind of checked out. So we kept giving him water. And like I said, the only reason I bring up the diabetes is just because it was just something else to think about. It never really comes into play the whole hike, other than it's something to think about, to make sure our sugar is right, because a lot of those drinks have sugar in them and stuff.
But how was your tone and your interaction with your brother and your wife at this point?
At this point, it was okay. It was all right. The box, it gets a little worse.
You guys were still on the same team. There wasn't any yelling at each other or getting really
No,
frustrated.
Nope. Other than there were some apologies to us, and I'm like, well, that we need to keep moving. We need to keep going. Once we get to the box, it takes a little different tone because because he was just walking way too slow, and I just knew we can't be where we're going to be. We just can't be. So we got up, then we're heading into the box. I was getting our shirts into the creek, getting them wet, getting our buffs, that's the term, buffs, getting our buffs wet, getting them on us. And as we kept hiking, eventually it was just going so slow. And it was my brother had a thermometer on his bag. I just didn't want to look at it because I didn't want to get depressed. I'm sure it didn't go to 120 or whatever. So at one point, once we get into the box and it's so hot, just smoking hot, I had to sit and think for a minute because I really thought at that point, and I've told people this, and this is honest truth, this was really the closest I've been to dying, even at my job. It was a really bad situation. So at that point, once we got into the box, I don't remember exactly where.
Well, why do you say that? What were you feeling at that point? I mean, it's got to be pretty dire for you to be thinking that you're close to death.
Because I was really hot, and I was carrying everything. I was carrying my own personal body plus my backpack plus my brother's backpack. So I'm burning through calories, which I hadn't planned on doing. Now we're running out of water because you don't have water from Cottonwood all the way down. I think that's correct.
Correct.
And
yes.
right. And so we're burning. So I had a 3 liter My wife had a 2-liter bladder and my brother had another 2-liter. And I think we had maybe a couple bottles of water each where you could mix your electrolytes and stuff like that. And so we were running out of water. And so my thought process was, we can't all die here. Somebody's got to go. Well, my brother was moving too slow. And I thought, well, if anybody can move him or lift him if we need to, it's going to be me. So we stop at a point where, and I hate to repeat this, where or other people know that have traveled there, there's no shade. You might catch a little bit on your forehead from a rock if you get close enough to the real hot rocks to get shade on your face. And I just sat and thought for a minute, and I just thought, and I said, well, here's what we're going to do because we're running out of water. There's a point when you get into the box where the trail is, I tell 6, 7, 8 feet above where the water is. I assume the water gets really high after the winter melt. Well, now it's not that high. So for me to get water, which I had to go filter, I would have to climb down this wall. I'm already spent. I'm out of energy because of the heat and how slow we're moving. I would climb down that wall. And it's not really a path. It's just you're making your own path with cactus and bees everywhere. I'd get down to the water, and the filtration I bought, I don't remember I want to say like a Sawyer Mini or something. But it had a pouch that comes with it. Well, the water at that point wasn't running fast enough to me really to fill up this pouch with water effectively. Because I needed to fill all of we were out of water. We were almost out of water. So I eventually ended up using like a regular water bottle, a small water bottle, like whatever that is, 16-ounce water bottle. Put water in that from the thing. I fill it through the filter, and I do that into our water bladders, which just takes forever. And I'm in the direct sun, and there's cactus and bees everywhere. And so I do that. I get everybody's, and it's not easy because I have to climb up this 6, 7 foot wall. So I get everybody's stuff wet, and I didn't want to hike in the water. I'm just not a real big fan of that because I'm worried I'm going to get blisters and that sort of thing. So at that point, we weren't going to do that. I said, here's what we're going to do. I told my wife, I filled up her water bladder, got her stuff all wet. I said, we can't be too far. However, I paused my All Trails app. So now when I was getting up and down, I accidentally paused it. And so now I didn't know how far we were. And as well, the GPS sometimes just really doesn't work down there very well. We eventually tell my wife, I say, here's what we're going to do. You're going to go by yourself and you're going to go to the Phantom Ranch. We had dinner reservations at 5. So if we weren't there by 5, you would miss out on that. And I'm giving that more of a reference for time frame.
What time is this that you guys are talking about splitting up?
Oh, I would say it was probably 3, maybe around there. So we'd almost been hiking for close to 12 or 11 hours, something like that. So at that point I say, well, and these are the words I use. I said, there's no point in all of us dying here. You need to go. So I had my wife go. I absolutely did not want to send her by herself. I just didn't want to. Part of it was to hike it together. And part of it is, I fear the unknown a lot and just didn't want her to, what if she falls or what if she runs out of water? I couldn't be at 2 places at once. But so the decision was made. To tell her to go to the Phantom Ranch. I said, once you get there, get a shower, get something to eat, take care of yourself, clean, get your clean clothes on, do whatever you need to do so you can be good to go.
Was she supportive of this plan? And did you, what was it like when you guys split up?
Yeah. I think she came to realization too that 2 of us there weren't going to do anything. And the worry did come over my mind that if my brother collapsed, that wall was simply too high. I don't know if I could have drug him to the water because it was just, I could have went backwards, but it was quite a distance to where that trail met up. I thought that in my mind. I thought if he passes out, I don't know what, I didn't know what I was going to do. And it was real emotional for me and my wife for sure. Because like I said, the last thing I wanted to do was send her on her way by herself. Yeah, it was pretty emotional, because then I can't take care of her and him. We're apart. But I thought if she would make it, I knew she would make it. So I sent her on her way, and it's a picture in my brain. I remember going around the one turn, and out of sight she went. And then I thought, now I've turned my attention to my brother, and that's where it gets a little heated, to say the least.
Bright Angel Outfitters is more than a brand. It's a mission.
To help you have the best possible experience at the magnificent Grand Canyon.
I'm Zena Special.
And I'm Brian Special.
From the Grand Canyon Hiker Dude Show to our YouTube channel,
our free ebook to our Grand Canyon Shade Tracker,
we're here to help.
We've also got some great gear like the Rim2Rim Day Pack.
With its 6 spacious front pockets.
Yeah, that'll help you hike your best hike.
At Bright Angel Outfitters, we do it all for the love of the canyon.
And I hope you'll love it and revere it as we do.
Thank you for being part of the Bright Angel Outfitters community.
Welcome back to the show. At this point, Stacy has continued on toward Phantom Ranch. She's doing so without her cell phone, which, to make their story even more dire, had been accidentally left in the shuttle on the North Rim. Al and his brother David, meanwhile, are in danger. They've made it to the box, the section of North Kaibab where the canyon walls close in, just 50 to 100 feet apart in some places. As beautiful as it is, that proximity creates an oven-like effect, making temperatures in direct sun feel 20 to 30 degrees warmer than what that day's high temperature at Phantom of 116 in the shade would be. Making matters far worse, Al and David are going through the box in mid to late afternoon, the hottest and most sun-exposed part of the day, with frustrations starting to boil over.
This is the point where I kind of lose my cool a little bit. And, I just told my brother, I said, what did you think this was? People watch videos of people that run it in a day and go, well, if we're going to do it in 3, that person can run it in a day. Clearly, I can walk this. I can walk this in 3 days. And that's just not the case. It's rough on your body. It's rough on your bones, especially if you got bad knees. And I just said, you were a fool for putting all of us in danger like this, because we shouldn't be here. That was a line I probably repeated about 1,000 times, is we shouldn't have been here. We shouldn't have been in this area at this time. But due to him not training properly, it put us there. And so now I had to, like I said, he mentioned me leaving him. I can't, that wasn't an option either. So eventually I would walk 100 feet ahead of him and tell him to come to me. And I would wait in, whatever itty bitty shade you could maybe get on your forehead. And he would walk to me. I said, just kind of cheering him on. Let's go, let's go, let's go. We got to keep going. So eventually we get around a couple turns and I thought, well, okay, we've got to change because we're just, I thought we were going to die. I said, we need to get in the water. And again, in retrospect, you look at everything after you go through it and go, oh, I could have done this better. At the time, I didn't think about it. We should have gotten in the water sooner. I should have done that sooner. But I just kept in the back of my head, I just didn't want to walk with wet feet. I just thought we could make it. So the decision was made that we'd get in the water, and the water was maybe 1.5 feet deep. It wasn't running like it was up by the falls. It was running a little bit slower. And I thought, well, we'll be in the water. As the wind goes over the water, it gives you a little bit of coolness, but I would probably guarantee it was probably 130 there, because when we get to Phantom, which we do eventually get to Phantom Ranch, the thermometer they have there in the shade was 100. It said 120. So I can only assume in the sun it was 130 plus where we were. No humidity, which was a bonus. So I decided we'd get in the water, and we had our hiking poles. I thought, well, we'll walk in the water. The water will get us to the Phantom Ranch because I know it runs right by there. I can filter water as we go, and this is how we're going to do it. I don't think he wanted to do that at first, but that was the option we had left to us, was because any survival show you watch, smaller water leads to bigger water. But I just, that was kind of in my head as well. But I knew this went right by Phantom Ranch. I knew that. So I said, let's start walking. We're going to walk in the water. It's going to be slow, but at least we can sit in the water if we need to. We can filter our water if we need to, and we'll just go. And again, the good cop, bad cop. My good cop was gone. Bad cop was there because I was really frustrated at it that we were where we were when we were. So we started hiking, and we didn't hike more than a few, maybe yards. And two people from the Phantom Ranch come around the corner off of a side hike somewhere, carrying a water bottle and a towel. And so when I saw them, I remember thinking, well, they didn't hike from the north. They just got a water bottle and a towel. I said, who are you guys? Where are you guys coming from? And they said they work at the Phantom Ranch, a guy and a girl.
Are these the first people you've seen, and how long?
First we've seen some Cottonwood, so probably 6 hours probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I have to sit down and really do the math. But out of nowhere, I had just got my brother down in the water, trying not to get our phones wet and that kind of stuff. And they come around the corner. I said, you've got to be kidding me. I cannot believe that you just came around the corner. And they said, are you guys not doing well? I said, well, I'm doing okay. My brother isn't. And they said, well, you just need to lay down in the water and you're almost there. You're 3 turns away. They said maybe 30 minutes.
Oh, wow.
But 30 minutes for my brother is, at this point where we are and how hot it is probably a good hour and a half. So at that point, they say, oh, yeah, you need to have your brother lay in the water and completely immerse himself and let the water take the heat away. He just needs to lay down and get wet. So I have my brother lay in the water. I kind of make I use the term birdie nest. I start moving because the rocks were kind of bigger in the water. It wasn't sand. Kind of moved some rocks around to kind of pool up some water. And we laid there for a good 45 minutes. That was a game changer, having that water run over his entire body and take that heat away. And every so often a slight breeze would come over the water, and it just felt amazing. And I say, from 130 to 100 degrees, it was that difference. Eventually we got out, we're soaking wet, obviously our shoes are, and we get back on the trail, and it's a slow go again. And we started going, and eventually got into the Phantom Ranch. I think we got there. Yeah. So I think it was maybe 3 when they came around the corner, and we got into the Phantom Ranch about 4:45, somewhere around there. And that was pretty emotional too, getting to the cabin and seeing my wife.
It had taken Al and David 13 hours to reach Phantom Ranch, more than double the worst case scenario in their expected 4 to 6 hour window. Ahead were 2 nights at Phantom before they'd need to get themselves out of the canyon, 10 miles and 4,400 vertical feet that David was already fearing.
I could see worry really setting in on him, really in his face. I could see that he was very concerned about getting out, and that he even entertained, can I have the mules take me out? Well, it was too hot to have the mules take you out. He even entertained trying to see if they would get him out by helicopter, and he'd pay whatever it took to pay. And I'm like, well, I don't think these are options that are going to work.
The plan was to leave at 2:30 that second morning, and the hope was to be up Bright Angel and out of the canyon before the peak of what would be a 110-degree day at the bottom.
We started at 2:30 with our headlamps, and crossing the Colorado on a steel bridge at 2:30 in the morning is a little eerie. You hear all that water below you, and you're hitting the metal, and it's stomping. But now I was the attitude of we got to go again. We're going to be in the heat. We've got to get going. That was just kind of my attitude. And I built him up. I tried to build up my brother with, you're a mile and a half out or so, and there's bathrooms in the creek that goes right by there. I said, let's make it there.
The River Rest House.
There you go. Let's make it there. And that creek's right by you. I'll get our shirts wet again. Everybody use the bathroom, and we'll keep moving. And so we got there, and Brian, I have bad news for you. My brother said he couldn't continue at that point. So it is maybe, I'm guessing it's now 4 maybe in the morning, and he's told me so
the coolest part of the day, you've only gone a mile and a half, and you haven't even started the ascent yet because it's relatively flat that whole way. And he's telling you he He can't continue at that point.
I know, depressing, believe me.
Boy.
So at that point, I take his backpack again. Yeah, I take his backpack again after I'd gone and got everybody's shirts wet, soaking wet. I mean, there was a point where when we first started, I would wring out the shirts. Now we weren't wringing them out. They were wet because I was like, we need to do this. So I would lead and my wife would be behind him. And now all he's got to do is walk and use his poles. He's carrying just himself. So we start in some of that area there. Well, first of all, it's pitch black down there. Well, our lamps, another thing I'll probably buy someday is a lamp that goes around your waist. The lamps drew bugs to your head, which then drew bats. So then bats would be flying around. But again, we're to the point where we have to keep moving. We can't stop. We got to keep going. In some of those areas there, you're straight down on some of those hikes. So we just stayed close to the wall and kept moving best we could. So at some point when the sun's coming up, my wife says, why don't you Havasu Garden next? Is that correct? Yep.
Havasupai Gardens, yeah.
Yeah, Havasu Gardens. Yep. She says, why don't you go ahead and I'll stay with him? Because now the sun is up and we're not, or I say sun is up. It's enough where you can see without your headlamps. Why don't you go up there? Because we knew there was a ranger station, there was shelter, water. So I hustled up ahead. I got up there. I use the bathroom. Fill up my water. I start getting stuff ready because there's a couple shelters there. And I thought, well, we'll rest here. I'll get everything set up. And there's people, and I call them hiking bros. Everybody's on the same page. If you've made it that far, you're all on the same page. And I waited and I waited. And eventually they came around the corner. And as they come around the corner just as you're coming in there where it's all nice and green there and stuff, I look at my wife in the face and she looks at me. My brother can't see her. He'll know about it now, but he can't see her. She looks at me and takes her hand across her throat to motion that he's done. He can't go on. This is bad. She does that. And I'm like, oh yeah. Okay. When my wife does that, I know we're in bad shape. So then my brother sits down, they got benches there. And then they add insult to injury when you have to go to the bathroom. You got to climb another 50 steps to go to the bathroom, there. So you're already tired. So he sits down, and he rests on his poles and he just, the hiking poles, and just lets out a big, like he's done. So, I can see the frustration in my wife's face. I'm frustrated. And now again, I have to make a decision. What do we do? I'm talking to people and two guys come down. A lot of people come down to that point that are pretty good hikers. And I had these two guys come down and I said, hey, if we pick up the emergency phone, what's that going to do for us? And they said, oh, they're just going to encourage you even more to make it. They're not coming down for you unless you are non-coherent. I said, well, that's what I kind of figured. And not for me, again. So we sit, we make some food, we eat, fill up our water. So at that point, again, I tell my wife, I say, well, here's what we need to do. I'm going to have you go by yourself again because I know we're going to get cell service at some point on the south side because I always describe to people 95% of everything's over there. People, places to eat, places to stay, cell service. We're going to get some eventually. And there's more people, so I don't feel quite as uneasy about sending her by herself because we've seen people and stuff like that. So I say, well, here's what I'll do. I'll rest with him. You take off. You go up to the next stop, which is that the 3 mile?
Yes, 3 mile rest
Yep.
house.
Yep. I said, make your way up there. I sent her on her way. Again, emotional again. This is not what I wanted to do. So my brother's he's checked out. I'm giving him water, pouring water on his head, etc. So we're just kind of waiting it out. I'm just waiting for him to kind of give me the thumbs up or the half thumbs up, if you will, to go.
What time is this about?
I think I sent my wife roughly at 7 a.m. So again, my times might be off a little bit because I got there before them. They arrived about an hour later. So she leaves about 7 in the morning. So after we sit there for a good hour or so, I'm like, we got to go. We can't, it's going to get too hot. We got to go. We're in the shade right now. And every 100 feet you walk, though, it gets just a hair cooler, just a hair cooler. So I was like, let's go. So eventually he gets his stuff together. I'm carrying his bag again. He's just got to walk. We get, I don't even know how far, not very far. And we run into a park ranger by the name of Betsy, who's an absolute rock star. And I've seen her mentioned other places. A tiny, very unassuming woman covered head to toe in park ranger gear. She walks up and she says, is it not going very good? Is everything all right? I said, well, I'm fine. My brother's not. He's having a hard time getting up here, and I guess I'm struggling with carrying this extra weight. She said, well, how could I help? And she gets her little mister out and she mists him, her little spray bottle, which I wish we would have brought one because it would have been another game changer. Sprays him down. She's like, you got to keep wet. You got to keep wet. And she busts out her own food. I don't know, some sort of vegetable wrap, because I told her that my brother had diabetes and she knew how to do everything. I mean, just an absolute rock star. I think she said she was a teacher before she did this. She says, she's asked my brother a bunch of questions. She says, here, have a bite of my food so we make sure your levels are correct, your blood sugar levels. And he eats it, and he don't eat vegetables. And he ate part of her wrap there. So she asked us, she goes, well, how can I help? I said, well, I'm spent. I said, I've been carrying 2 backpacks down and now up. I said, if there's any way to somehow get some of this gear up there without me carrying it. She goes, well, how about this? I'll go back to the ranger station where we were. And she goes, I'm going to make a phone call or maybe a radio call. And then I'll catch up with you. You guys start walking. I'll catch up with you. And I'll carry your brother's stuff up to the 3-mile rest area. She goes, this is kind of my area, and that's where I can get you to. And then I will have another ranger meet you at the 3-mile. And his name, I think I make sure I get it right, Thomas. Another stellar park employee. They should both have raises. They were amazing. She says, I'll catch up with you, but I'm going to do these phone calls. I'm going to get some ice to give to you guys. I'm going to fill up my pack, and I'll catch up to you. So we start walking, and eventually she catches up to us. We rest again, and she's read every positivity book that's out there, because I was done. The positivity had left my body, and we'll walk at your pace. We'll go when you want to go. You can make it. We're going to make it. It might be a slow go, but we're going to make it. So we get going, and while we're walking, I eventually get a phone call from an Omaha phone number, who, again, I wouldn't normally answer, but I'm waiting for a phone call from my wife, and she borrowed an older gentleman's phone, and that was then I knew things were okay.
Wait, you got a phone call from an Omaha number, so it happened to be a tourist up there that your wife borrowed the phone from, who's from where you live?
Yep.
Oh, well, a stroke of good luck finally happens.
That's right. I couldn't believe it. It was incredible.
The plan had been for the 3 to get out of the canyon and drive the hour and 20 minutes or so to Flagstaff, where they'd rented an Airbnb for the night. But Al knew that was not going to happen, so he had one more request of Stacy.
I said, when you get to the top, get any place that's available, and we're going to stay here tonight, because we're simply not going to make where we need to be. I said, and my brother's paying for it. He didn't say that. I said, yeah, he's sitting right next to me. I said, he's paying for it, because this is not how this should be going down. So I get off the phone with her, and away we walk. We eventually get to the 3-mile. I want to say it was probably 12:30 in the afternoon.
So you're essentially 10 hours into this hike from Phantom, and you're only at 3-mile rest house. It's the middle of the day. We're talking about temperatures at the bottom over 110. So probably well over 100 at 3-mile rest house where you're at. And now, only now, do you enter the most infamous and difficult part of the ascent of Bright Angel.
So that rest house at 3-mile, we have to wait for Thomas to come down. So when we get to 3 Mile Rest House, we are there for a good 3.5 hours because we had to wait for Thomas to get on duty to come down.
That was probably a lifesaver, Al. That was
Oh,
because you guys, if that was 3.5 hours, the timing adds up. That by the time you guys started back up again at 4 o'clock or so, now you're talking about having some shade, right?
yeah. It missed it a little bit, which was great. But we just sat in that shelter and we ran into quite a few people there. The 3 Mile, a lot of people think it's easy. It's still hard to do, but a lot of people make it down there. And we ran into a lot of people. Again, but now we had bathrooms, we had water, and we had shelter. We could get out of the sun. Still hot, but we didn't have the sun beating down on us. But
So there was no rush at that point because you were waiting for Thomas to come down, which also really worked out because then you didn't have to, force yourselves to go up at the hottest time and most sun-exposed part of the trail. So that really worked out that you had to wait for Thomas.
it did, and then I just told my brother, I said, just lay down and go to sleep. Just go to sleep. But again, in that rest house, I suppose you could hold 10 people sitting on them benches comfortably, I guess. A lot of people come down there and kind of just turn around and go back up. But then I just ended up, just talking to people as they came down and just chit-chatting while my brother I just said, you just go to sleep and just rest. And then eventually I could see Thomas coming down. And I mean, just a tiny person against the backdrop. And he came down and just another rock star. I mean, just a great guy. He already knew what was going on, and he asked about my brother's, his health and how he's feeling, and he just knew everything. And so he just said, whenever you're ready, we'll go at your pace. Another positive attitude that really helped. We'll go at your pace. And we were literally walking inches at a time. I mean, not feet at a time, inches.
Even after the long rest.
Yep. And eventually we get to the 1.5 miles. There's quite a few people there, not knowing the pain we've gone through to get to this point. But we get there and rest for quite a while. Again, I don't remember how long we rest there, but I'd probably say a good hour. So I tell my wife, I say, hey, we're leaving the 1.5 miles. Like I said, I think it was maybe 6 o'clock, something like that. We're leaving this. We're on our way up. And that's a brutal straight up deal. It's dark. It becomes dark again, and we have to put our headlamps on again. So we started in the dark, went through a full day's worth of sun, and now it's dark again. And my wife could see us eventually coming up way in the distance, our headlamps. And I think we got up at maybe 9:30 at night. So we had been on the trail almost 17 hours.
What was it like when you guys finally surfaced and you finally stepped on on essentially the blacktop, the pavement? You're hiking in the canyon, you're coming up the last end of Bright Angel, and suddenly you're on pavement and you're right there, and it's over. What was that feeling like for you guys, even though it's pitch black up there at 9:30 at night?
Well, I think it's kind of twofold. Man, I wanted to have my picture taken by the bright, where I came up, the trailhead,
by the sign, yeah.
And it was pitch black. We tried to take pictures, it just didn't work, and we were tired. I was happy to be up for sure. I was mad that it didn't. There were so many things that went wrong, not just a couple. A lot of things went wrong. And now I knew, well, we've got to walk some more to where we're staying. We got to walk some more. And Thomas went off into the distance. Again, I tried to give Betsy and Thomas some of my brother's money. They wouldn't take it. Yes, me and my brother are still friends and relatives.
Hey, Al, I mean, no matter what, no matter how long it took, no matter the struggle you went through the entire way, you and your wife and your brother hiked rim to rim in the Grand Canyon, and no one can take that away from you, man.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of it, and I can't wait to go back for sure.
That was the misadventure of Al, Stacy, and David Pickering. By the way, their flight home the next day was no better. It took sitting on 2 planes on the sizzling tarmac in Phoenix for almost 4 hours before they finally got on a 3rd plane that did not have mechanical issues for their flight home finally to Nebraska. Well, their tale is another illustration of the dangers of hiking in the heat in the Grand Canyon and why choosing a better time of year altogether is ideal. At the very least, it's important to have done thorough research so the surprises are limited and obviously to put in the physical training so you don't put yourself or the others in your group in such grave danger. We talk all the time about how you'll never be able to stop people from taking on Rim2Rim in the summer. They're still going to do it, but the hope is stories like this will make those folks take things very seriously and know as much as they can about what they're getting themselves into, because ultimately the canyon can and will kill the unprepared. Do not let that be you, please. Well, to start on your research, we've got some ways to help. First, you can go to our website, brightangeloutfitters.com, and grab our free ebook, Rim2Rim, A Beginner's Guide. That'll get you started. In addition to past episodes of this show, you'll also want to join the Facebook groups like Grand Canyon Rim2Rim, Grand Canyon Hikers, and the Rim2Rim Training and Trip Planning group, as well as our new Grand Canyon Hiker Dude Show group. We also have tons of videos on our Grand Canyon Hiker Dude YouTube channel, and then there's what I think is our most valuable contribution to the Grand Canyon hiking community, the Grand Canyon Shade Tracker that lets you see exactly when and where you will have shade on your hike, no matter the day, no matter the route. Shade can be a literal lifesaver in the summer months. That's all totally free. brightangeloutfitters.com. While you're there, please also check out our Rim2Rim pack with its front pockets on the shoulder straps for all your essentials, and a fully insulated pocket to keep everything cold. The Rim2Rim pack is made so you can hike your best hike. All right, how about a training tip now from Canyon vet and exercise physiologist Coach Arnie, here this time to tell you that when all else fails, just breathe.
This tip is very specific. And, after listening and reading so many wonderful stories and so not so wonderful stories, the one tip that I think would really help people is breathing. It's a breathing technique that I use in my own training and I use with my clients, because what it does, not only does it help to calm me down and my clients down, but it can actually help you to become stronger. And it's a very simple technique. I call it belly breathing. If you were to start your trip with 5 belly breaths, breathing through your nose into your belly and then out your mouth, very calmly, 5 belly breaths, and you will feel better. You'll see more clarity, and as you start on your journey. And every once in a while, maybe you'll do it every stop, maybe at Uha Point, maybe at Cedar Ridge. And what you do, you just do 5 belly breaths. You would be surprised how not only will it calm you down, slow your heart rate down, lower your blood pressure, it will make you stronger. You'll feel better. You can use that technique your whole trip, and I promise you that simple little breathing technique of 5 belly breaths will make your trip better. And you will have a stronger, more enjoyable adventure. It's that simple. Learning how to breathe can make your canyon trip better. I love you guys. Give it a try.
That is Coach Arnie Fonseca Jr. His contact information is in the show notes, and believe me, he wants to hear from you, so do not be shy. All right, that's it for now. My name is Brian Special, encouraging you, as always, to go hike the canyon. Take that first step, embrace the journey, and when you get there, whether it's for time goals or taking your time, just hike your own hike and enjoy every step of one of the most spellbinding experiences you can possibly have. We'll see you next time on the Grand Canyon Hiker Dude Show, presented by Bright Angel Outfitters.